I'd like to introduce you to Rena, Tamiba and Captain Kid. Hello plant loving friends, how are you all? I hope you're enjoying this fantastic day or night wherever you are in this world. And today I'm going to be talking about Crotons. Crotons are also known as Codiaeum Variegatum, and I'd like to share with you guys today some care tips on how to grow a healthy and lush Croton. And Crotons come from the tropical rainforests of Indonesia, Malaysia and Australia. And if you do like this kind of planty content, please hit the likes button and subscribe to the channel. Truly appreciate your support in growing this channel so I can create more content about plants to help you take care of your plants. So the first tip I would recommend is Crotons. They don't like to be moved. So taking a Croton from the nursery, it's important to choose a day where it's not too cold. If it happens to be a cold day, they can be prone to the weather being too cold. So I would recommend taking a Croton in a box or wrapping it around when bringing it home from the nursery on a cold day. This will help to de-stress the plant or prevent the plant from becoming stressed. Because if the Croton plant becomes stressed, what happens is that they'll drop leaves. So they'll drop leaves before you can say, what happened to my green baby? It's just the leaves just keep on dropping down. And that's a sign of the plant being stressed. If this does occur, I would recommend is still take the care tips you normally do for the Croton, and hopefully it will regrow the leaves back. When it comes to temperature, Crotons come from a hot and humid environment. So with the temperature of the household, I would recommend you pop in the area that's between 60 Fahrenheit to 80 Fahrenheit. So that's roughly around about 15 degrees to about 26 degrees. They don't like the cold, so I wouldn't recommend placing an area that's too close to the window because that can become too cold, and also areas away from drafts or air conditioning as well. When it comes to lighting, Crotons love bright indirect sunlight, and almost to the point where they do survive in bright direct sunlight as well, depending on where you live in this world. And they definitely cannot tolerate low light, and sometimes they can't even tolerate medium light either. To tell how much lighting a Croton needs, if the actual leaves start to lose its vibrancy, its color, the coloring is kind of fading, then that's a sign that the plant may need more indirect sunlight. And also, if the plant starts to get grayish spots in it, that's a sign that it's actually getting too much sunlight, and what's happening is fading its color because from the heat. So I would recommend is that if you have leaves that are fading color, move it more towards the light, and if you see grayish spots on the leaves, then put it a little bit less light as well. Also, the other part to know is that Crotons have these beautiful colored leaves, and the leaves will only turn into this gorgeous reddish sort of coloring or yellow coloring if it has received enough sunlight. What will happen is that if the Croton doesn't receive enough light, it will end up being a more greenish color. Now with the Croton, its new leaves will come out green, and it will only develop its color if there is enough light. So you can see with this one here, this is a Croton Rena. You can see the bottom leaves. So if I lift it up, these bottom leaves are very red, very vibrant colors, and the top leaves are less in coloration, so it's more a yellow, and that's because the top leaves haven't received as much light compared to these bottom leaves. So if you see that your Croton, the leaves come out green but don't actually change in color, that's a sign that the plant is not receiving enough sunlight. And Crotons it's so important for them to receive enough sunlight, otherwise they won't grow lush either. When it comes to humidity, they're not too bad as a tropical plant. It requires when it comes to humidity, they do like the humidity to be above 50%, I find. And if you do find that the humidity is not high enough, the edges of the leaves, the tips of the leaves can turn brown. And if you see that, I would recommend you group these plants together, or group the plants together, or placing on a tray of pebble and water. If you'd like to know how to increase the humidity of the household without using a humidifier, check out my other video. I'll pop it down in the description area at the bottom. When it comes to things like soil, Crotons like evenly moist soil, never soggy. And I think, look, most plants, they don't like soggy soil. They don't like the roots sitting in soggy soil because that can lead to things like root rot. So they like an evenly moist soil. They don't like their soil to be completely dry because what will happen is if it completely dries, the leaves will, the tips of the leaves will dry up. So I have an example here. This is one that I forgot to water in time, and the tips of the leaves have dried up, and that's a sign of underwatering. If it's overwatered, what will happen is the whole leaf will go yellow and it will drop off. So it's important to make sure that the soil is moist but not soggy, and you can check that by using your finger, go down in the pot as far as you can and see if the soil is still wet or still moist, or whether it's dry. I would recommend probably a couple inches, so that much down into the pot, and see if the soil is moist or dry. You can, lately what I've done is I've used a moisture meter, and that's really helped to find out how soggy or how moist the soil is. When it comes to things like also with the soil, I forgot to mention, when it comes to soil, the soil needs to be a well draining and rich soil, and it needs to be well draining because these plants are prone to root rot. They don't like to be sitting in soggy soil. So my soil mixture consists of 50% premium potting mix, 20% orchid mix, and 30% perlite. So I find that's a good mixture, or good soil mixture for Crotons. I don't put clay in the soil because the Crotons don't like clay in the soil. And yes, the perlite, it's more to make sure that the drainage is very good. And when watering a Croton, it's important to make sure that the water is draining out of the bottom of the pot and it's not just sitting in the pot. So definitely a pot that has drainage holes in it is very important. So when it comes to things like pests, I haven't had an issue with my Crotons so far, so cross fingers, it stays that way. But Crotons can be prone to the normal pests, the 5 main pests, which is spider mites, really, mealybugs, thrips, scales, and fungus gnats. And fungus gnats generally occur if the plant is constantly overwatered. And definitely when a Croton is in an area that it likes to stay in, try and not to move it, because Crotons definitely don't like to be moved. Once they're actually climatized and acclimate to a certain area, they like to stay there. And they don't like to be moved because that can stress the plant out, and you'll start to find that the leaves may drop or fall off. If you find that one leaf falls off, then that's quite normal. The leaf might be an old leaf and that's falling off. But if you're finding that 3 or 4 leaves are dropping off, that's certainly a concern with the Croton, because it's a sign that it's not happy. When it comes to things like fertilizing, these days, any of my plants, if I find that it's growing, whether it's in the growing season or the non-growing season, if I find that it's growing, then I would use a quarter strength of liquid fertilizer while I'm watering the plant. Just a summary for you guys for the care tips on a Croton is that if you're finding the tips of the leaves are becoming brown, that's a sign that the plant is being underwatered. If you find that the whole leaf is turning yellow, that's a sign that's been overwatered. If you're finding that the coloring of the leaves is fading or it's actually not, the new leaves are not changing in color, then it's a sign that the plant needs more sunlight. If you're finding grayish spots on the leaf, then it's a sign that the plant is receiving too much sunlight and being damaged by the heat. And the main part is that if the Croton is happy in its spot, try and not move it, because they are very temperamental plants. If they get moved, they can become stressed and start losing its leaves. So if you like this kind of content, please hit the likes button and subscribe to the channel. I truly appreciate your support and spending your time with me today. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to see you again in the next video. See you, bye.